None of the following religions predating Christianity held to infinite conscious torment in hell. Animism, ancient Egyptian religion, Hinduism, Zoroastrianism, ancient Roman religion, Jainism, Confucianism, Buddhism, Shintoism, nor Taoism. Not even the Judaism which Christianity sprang from. But this forever tortured in hell idea was prominent in ancient Greek religion. And it's common knowledge that this Greek philosophy and culture strongly influenced Christianity after Christianity was founded, and is the only one to do so. Know that all Christian scriptures were translated from Greek texts, and so the idea of infinite torment in hell dominated throughout Christian history. The world religion of Islam, founded centuries later, was clearly influenced by Christianity. Know that a couple hundred passages from their holy book, the Quran, reference stories and characters in the Christian Bible. And so, the idea of infinite torment of hell dominated throughout Islamic history. A second position, very rare within Islam and a minority position throughout Christian history, has been annihilationism. This means the lost likewise suffering conscious torment of hell, but it eventually ends, otherwise known as conditionalism. It has zero implications for the gospel message otherwise. Now, Kirk Cameron was a famous television actor who became a dedicated Protestant believer and was seen as having remained so for a long time. He was friends and acquaintances with well-known evangelical preachers for decades, most notably televangelist Ray Comfort, with whom he co-founded a ministry. He eventually embraced annihilationism and rejected eternal conscious torment. A reason he gave was that a doctrine atheists love to showcase as a reason why they could never believe in the Bible God is that of infinite punishment. He felt that holding to and professing that doctrine hampered his ability to spread the gospel, besides seeing it as extraordinarily cruel and inconsistent with God's character. To Kirk's surprise, he was subject to a smackdown cancel culture attitude from his own team. Specific remarks included, "Grieved to see this from Kirk Cameron. Kirk is dangerously wrong. His belief in annihilationism is terrible. It was sad and a fatal error. Kirk has completely lost it. Besides being called a heretic numerous times, others called him a false prophet, or what he said was cult rhetoric, apostasy, or denial or undermining of the gospel. One woman stated, Cameron's verbal vomiting is radical rhetoric and the abyss of apostasy's damnation. Good luck with that in the throne room." Among other evangelical Protestants, Cameron is now known as the perpetrator of so-called Hellgate, since his backstabbing former associates equate it with a scandal like Watergate. They've disowned him, including Ray Comfort. Their attempted justification for this is their claim that Scripture and the Bible are crystal clear that hell is eternal punishment and eternal conscious torment. This is absolutely false. Read the book The Fire That Consumes by Edward Fudge. It may seem perfectly clear to those who gleefully want most people to suffer infinite punishment. Consider an infinite torture advocate's following statement. If you reject Christ, then the moment you take your first step through the gates of hell, the only thing you'll hear is all of creation standing to its feet and applauding and praising God because God has rid the earth of you. Even more outrageous is that most infinite torture people claim that God always knows the entire future to the last detail. Then he purposely creates humanity knowing that the large majority will be damned for eternity, instead of limiting himself to creating those he knew would freely choose him. What is eternity? After a trillion times a quadrillion times a quintillion times a zillion years, you would not be the tiniest microscopic bit closer to its end than when you started. The branch of Christendom that's especially inflexible on this issue is Eastern Orthodoxy, almost all of whose leaders insist that annihilationism is heresy. But Jesus said in John 13:35, "By this shall all men know that ye are my disciples, if ye have love one to another." There is no Pharisees 13:35 saying, "All men shall know you are my disciples if you believe in an eternity of screaming and pain." I'm perfectly content with people believing in the infinite punishment doctrine. That's as long as you don't tell me I must believe it or else, or that I'm a heretic for rejecting it. If so, it is I who will disown you, who can take your miserable, sadistic ass elsewhere. Here's one more argument for infinite punishment not covered in my previous video on hell with a response. Sin itself is really an infinite insult to the infinite justice, righteousness, and holiness of God. In that sense, sin is infinite in its consequences because it is against God's infinite holiness. And the right penalty for sinning against God's infinite holiness would be eternal punishment. Analogy: killing an insect equals 0 punishment, killing someone's pet mouse equals a misdemeanor, killing a pet cat is a felony but never murder, killing a human would be murder. Now, there were different punishments for the same crime committed, since the punishment was not based on the action's nature. It was based on the entity acted against. Sin against lesser beings deserves lesser punishment. Sin against greater beings deserves greater punishment. So it follows that sin against an eternal and perfect God deserves eternal and perfect punishment. Not so fast! Since our Creator God is supremely powerful, there is no harm one can do to him. No blaspheme can actually harm his psyche. No punch can harm his physicality. No murder can remove any aspect of his life. No lie can take away from his knowledge of the truth. There just isn't any harm done to him. In all discussions about punishments fitting their crimes, their justice response is all about harm. Since no sin can personally harm the Christian God, only his finite creatures, infinite punishment would be petty retribution, not justice, especially if he selectively created scenarios where he knew people would unrepentantly sin. Also, there is a philosophical construct to explain reality called the cognitive theoretic model of the universe, or CTMU. Nothing within its nature allows for infinite punishment. Its logic points to conditionalism. And though I recommend Mr. Fudge's extensive, heavily researched book, you'd have to purchase it online. A free, immediately available work on the subject of hell would be my previous video on it, a syllabus of sorts. Please see it.